I'm stood on a massive dam high in the Swiss Alps, but I'm not here for the snow, ice or scenery. I'm here for this, one of the world's most challenging and epic construction sites. Hold on a minute, why are they building a shiny new dam when there's clearly already a dam standing right behind it? Well, that original structure is nearly a century old, has a crack in it, and is damaged beyond repair. It can't be fixed, it can't be demolished. And if nothing's done about it, well, things wouldn't be good. So here we are, building a dam in front of a dam.
Teams here are building an enormous new dam in the most unforgiving of locations.
But how do you replace something as massive as a dam in the middle of a mountain range? And what would happen if they didn't really bother? Come to Switzerland to find out.
You see, Spittelam is one of the world's first large arch gravity dams. It was built up here in the mountains between 1925 and 1932 and is actually older than the iconic Hoover Dam that we all know and love, which completed 3 years later. At 114 metres, Spittelam was also one of the tallest dams in the world when it finished. The vast structure was built by some 600 construction workers, almost entirely by hand.
The completion of this incredible structure meant that a new artificial lake could be created, and that's now used to generate hydroelectric power. Now, this lake is absolutely massive. It has a volume of 94 million cubic metres, making it one of the biggest reservoirs owned and operated by energy company KWO and one of the biggest reservoirs in the whole of Switzerland. But about 30 years after this amazing structure was completed, a pretty shocking discovery was made.
Back in the 60s, when the area was becoming popular with both tourists and filmmakers, some tests were made on the dam which threw up some very worrying results. Investigators found a big old crack on the lake side of the structure. Well, actually, it was more than a crack. It's what's called a vertical separation. In other words, a massive chunk of material running almost all the way from top to bottom has started to separate from the rest of the dam, the mass concrete. There's a smaller horizontal crack below the crest of the dam as well. Over the years, it's been getting worse, and there are concerns about what might happen to the structure in the event of an earthquake.
Yes, Switzerland does get those. In fact, it averages more than 1,000 a year. Most of them are too small to even notice. In fact, there could be one happening right now, for all I know. But the one that occurred back in 1991, for example, was big enough to cause damage to buildings. Now, at this point, I know what you're thinking. Why go through all that effort of building a great big new dam in front of the original dam? Why not just repair the original dam or fix that crack somehow?
Well, that was the original plan. Break off the material that's already separating and patch it up with some new, better quality concrete so that it's even stronger than before. But it turned out to be too risky. An investigation showed that doing that could lead to a so-called alkali aggregate reaction, which could cause long-term damage to the concrete. On top of all this, quite literally, sediment has started building up behind the dam and is now accumulating around the lower discharge zone. That's not good, because if this area gets completely blocked, it'll become harder to release water from the reservoir if they need to.
So what if they just removed the dam? Well, that would mean all of that water having to go somewhere else. And because it's used to generate hydroelectric power, that would leave a gap in the energy grid. That left them with only one option: build an entirely new dam in front of the old dam, and then flood the massive space between them using a tunnel. The original dam that I'm currently standing on is going to be retained. It's a piece of history after all. But the job of carrying the weight of all that water is going to be taken over by the new, younger and fitter dam. Now, when I say it like that, it sounds really simple, but trust me, it's not.
I've been to a lot of construction sites, but never seen anything like this. Cost-wise, the $140 million new dam is pretty small compared to your typical mega project, but its sheer scale and the challenges facing its teams are immense.
Right here is where it's being built, with the old dam towering behind it. Construction's been underway since 2019 and is due to fully wrap up by 2025. Now, obviously, a lot's changed in dam design since the 1930s. The original dam was built with a single arch, which is that huge curve you can clearly see from here. But take a look at a cross-section, and the lake side of the dam rises in a straight line.
Now, its replacement is going to be a double curvature dam, which means it'll curve in a vertical direction too. That means the dam's walls can be made thinner, meaning less materials, while still having the strength needed to hold back all that water. The new dam will be the same height as the old dam, but strong enough to be further extended in future if there were ever plans to grow the reservoir. Building all of that goes like this. It started with clearing space for the new dam. Now, this being solid rock, the team used controlled explosives.
Since becoming the interim president of Burkina Faso, Africa's youngest president, Ibrahim Traoré, has been keeping to his promise of transforming the country and ensuring a better life for his people. He has already launched and embarked on multiple developmental projects, as well as following up with projects that were launched before he rose to power.
Ce conflit que nous qualifions que autre chose que la manifestation violente, barbare de l'impérialisme, du néocolonialisme, de l'esclavage qu'on tend à nous imposer aujourd'hui. Ce que nous avons qualifié terrorisme. C'est dans ce sens que lorsque nous prenons par exemple le volet de l'orpaillage, votre thème en dit long sur l'employabilité des jeunes en milieu rural, beaucoup de nos jeunes se retrouvent aujourd'hui sur les sites artisanaux de production, dans des conditions les plus pénibles. C'est peut-être ce qui s'est passé en Europe ou en Amérique dans les années 1800. Lorsque les hommes rentrent eux-mêmes dans des galeries, qu'ils creusent eux-mêmes pour sortir le minerai, nos jeunes continuent de vivre cela, au péril de leur vie. Nous essayons aujourd'hui de moderniser un peu. C'est à l'issue de ça que nous avons créé donc la SONASP, une société qui va se permettre de pouvoir exploiter et de commercialiser nos substances précieuses, notamment l'or. L'or que les jeunes exploitent, que d'autres personnes viennent acheter à vil prix et qui contribuent à nourrir le terrorisme qui sort du pays sans que nous n'ayons aucun contrôle. Nous avons décidé de créer cette société pour essayer de reprendre le contrôle de nos sites miniers et pouvoir permettre aux jeunes qui y sont de produire de façon plus mécanisée et plus respectable.
Ibrahim Traoré rose to the limelight a few months ago and has already made a lot of headlines either for his outspoken nature, his dedication to the military uniform which he wears everywhere, or his way of greeting his peers and colleagues. The rest of the world, especially France, might not like him, but Burkinabés love him. In this video, we shall be counting down 7 projects either initiated by Ibrahim Traoré or to be continued by him. Modernization of all roads in Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso has always struggled with inadequate roads, which is why there has been a lot of resentment. Despite being rich in mineral resources, the country is still one of the poorest on the continent with an inadequate road network. However, Ibrahim Traoré has continued from where his predecessor stopped by investing in road construction and rehabilitation projects to improve the quality and connectivity of its road network. This includes the construction of new roads, widening existing ones, and upgrading gravel roads to paved surfaces. Cross-border roads also play a crucial role in facilitating regional trade, connecting Burkina Faso with neighboring countries. Examples of road construction projects currently ongoing in Burkina Faso include the Boromo-Bobo-Dioulasso Highway, the Kupele-Fadangoma Road, and the Ouagadougou-Bobo-Dioulasso Highway. These projects involve the construction of paved roads to enhance transportation and trade in the region. The realities of the work on the ground demonstrate the immense progress made in a short period. Previously, the roads were degraded, narrow, and unsafe. But thanks to the commitment of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, this reality has changed radically. In just 9 months, over 70 kilometers of roads have been built, and others are currently under construction to facilitate transportation within the framework of economic development, along with bridges to ease river crossings. Traders can now transport their goods more easily and safely. The inhabitants of the regions traversed by these new roads, filled with joy, have expressed their gratitude to Captain Ibrahim Traoré. 2. Construction of Ouagadougou Airport. Ouagadougou Airport is an airport development project in Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso's government secured loans totaling $61.8 million from the West African Development Bank and ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development for the construction of the new airport. West African Development Bank will provide $51.5 million for roadworks, water systems, emergency service facilities, equipment purchases, and construction of technical buildings related to the project. ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development will contribute $10.3 million for the construction of administrative buildings. The total economic impact of the airport project is estimated at €420 million. Construction is expected to create nearly 5,000 direct and indirect jobs. A captive solar plant and storage system will provide 80% of the airport's electricity requirements. Maîtrise d'ouvrage de l'Aéroport de Donson, MOAD, is in charge of the project. The new airport will replace the existing Ouagadougou Airport. Burkina Faso's transitional president, Ibrahim Traoré, announced the suspension of contracts for the Ouagadougou-Donson Airport project on 3 January 2023, pending a review. A building under construction at the airport collapsed on 30th December 2022, resulting in the deaths of 7 people and injuries to 6 others. Construction of the airport has since resumed, and upon completion, the project will be a game changer in Burkina Faso. 3. Multiple entrepreneurship programs. In recent years, Burkina Faso has been facing the challenge of terrorist attacks, which pose a threat to its stability and hinder its economic progress. To address this issue, a program has been initiated to strengthen resilience through the establishment of community-owned businesses. Burkina Faso's transitional president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, recently launched a community entrepreneurship program to stimulate the country's endogenous and inclusive development. The news was disclosed by the presidency on Monday, June 12. The program aims to stimulate the creation of community businesses specializing in the production, processing, and marketing of local products in sectors like agriculture, mining, and industry. It will also promote the creation of job opportunities for young people. The project is led by the Community Entrepreneurship Promotion Agency EPEC, with the technical supervision of the cooperative company SCOOPCA. The community businesses created will solely be owned by the Burkina Faso population. We strongly believe that this community shareholding approach is an effective alternative for meeting the economic, social, and political challenges we face, said Finance Minister Abubakar Nakanabo. EPEC intends to start the initiative with the expansion of tomato paste manufacturer Sofato, to include 2 new processing plants and the establishment of a semi-mechanized gold mining company for operations on 3 sites.
Et chacun à son niveau doit donc pouvoir aussi, par défaut de prendre la Kalachnikov, prendre autre chose pour participer au développement de cette patrie. Et ça, nous ne comptons que sur vous les jeunes. Je disais tout de suite donc aux parrains et à la marraine que j'allais forcer la main à ces grands opérateurs économiques du pays, et je pense que certains sont là, donc apprêtez-vous. On va vous forcer la main pour créer des initiatives donc, pour les jeunes. Nous avons donc lancé l'APEC dans ce sens-là pour permettre de créer ce qu'on appelle nos entreprises que nous voulons mettre sur place. Parce que nous le disons, c'est inconcevable que nous puissions ici produire de la tomate et que nous importons de la pâte de tomate. C'est absurde que nous avons tous les produits oléagineux ici et que nous ne puissions pas les transformer. Nous avons lancé cela et je vous invite à souscrire massivement parce que nous allons créer nos entreprises ici sur place et développer. Certes, des esprits impérialistes pourront essayer de vous détourner de l'objectif, mais écoutez, visez loin, visez très loin, réfléchissez et voyez ce qu'on va faire.
Other projects include an agricultural mechanization and intensification projects to create 1 million direct jobs within 2 years and a central purchasing office for local produce. Subscriptions start at 15,000 CFA francs, $25, including 5,000 CFA francs for registration at the SCOOPCA and 10,000 CFA francs to acquire shares. Subscription is open to all Burkinabés at home and abroad, who can purchase an unlimited number of shares. 4. Samandini Dam. Abu Dhabi Fund for Development, ADFD, the leading national entity for economic development aid, contributed $10 million towards the development of the Samandini Dam in Burkina Faso. Supporting the country's strategic objectives, the funded project is part of the Samandini Basin Development Program, which aims to promote sustainable growth in rural areas and improve living conditions by boosting the agricultural sector and food security system in Burkina Faso. The scope of the project comprised the construction of a 2,900-meter-long and 23.9-meter-high earth dam, capable of storing 1 billion cubic meters of water, and a 2.9 megawatts power plant. The works also include the establishment of irrigation systems to reclaim 1,500 hectares of agricultural land in the dam's basin. The Samandini Dam project, built to the highest international standards, will enhance food security, provide means of livelihood for rural populations, and increase the quantity and quality of agricultural production in the long term. Though this project was not initiated by Ibrahim Traoré, he has been involved with the advancement of the project. 5. Renewable energy projects. Burkina Faso has been actively pursuing renewable energy projects to diversify its energy sources, increase electricity access, and promote sustainable development. With the coming of Ibrahim Traoré, the capacity of this project has been intensified with strict control. Solar energy is a particular focus, given the country's abundant sunlight. The government has implemented initiatives such as the Rural Electrification Program, ILEAN, which aims to provide solar-powered mini-grids and solar home systems to rural communities. Large-scale solar power plants have also been constructed, such as the Zaktuli Solar Power Plant, with a capacity of 33 megawatts. Additionally, Burkina Faso is exploring biomass and biogas projects, utilizing agricultural waste for energy production. The country's hydropower potential is being tapped into through small-scale hydropower projects. International cooperation and financial support from organizations like the World Bank and the African Development Bank have played a crucial role in funding and implementing these renewable energy projects. These initiatives contribute to expanding electricity access, reducing reliance on fossil fuels, mitigating climate change, and fostering sustainable economic growth in Burkina Faso. 6. Water and sanitation projects. Burkina Faso has been implementing water and sanitation projects to address the challenges of water scarcity, inadequate sanitation facilities, and poor hygiene practices. These initiatives aim to improve access to clean water and promote better hygiene, particularly in rural areas. International organizations, bilateral donors, and national institutions support these projects through funding, technical assistance, and knowledge sharing. These agriculture and rural development initiatives contribute to enhancing food production, reducing poverty, and promoting sustainable rural livelihoods in Burkina Faso. Ibrahim Traoré has promised to do everything within his power to transform Burkina Faso, and we can already see the impact in just a few months in power.
Parce que le combat que nous menons, ce n'est pas uniquement pour le Burkina Faso, mais c'est un combat pour toute l'Afrique. Il est temps qu'on se réveille et que nous ne soyons plus amenés à traverser l'océan, à mourir pour aller chercher l'Eldorado tant vanté. On peut le créer ici.
Now to the aftermath of this week's devastating floods in Libya. Officials fear up to 20,000 people could be dead in the city of Derna on the Mediterranean. We get more now from CBS's Charlie D'Agata.
Even in the desperate search for survivors, a chaotic race to recover the dead. Waterborne diseases from the sheer number of bodies pose a deadly threat to those who survived Monday's catastrophic flooding, now struggling to survive its aftermath. A wall of water and mud several stories high swept away whole neighborhoods, a quarter of the coastal city of Derna. Downed buildings and destroyed cars show the force of the floodwaters unleashed after the collapse of two poorly maintained dams following torrential rains. It's not easy for a man to go through this, said Saad, who lost his home. No one helps you, not even the government. The devastation has been compounded by Libya's civil war, a country torn in two. The UN says countless lives would have been saved if a functioning alarm system and capable evacuation teams were in place, and better care of critical infrastructure like those failed dams.
In Libya, more than 2,000 people are believed to have died from severe flooding when Hurricane Daniel swept across the east of the country, according to a Libyan leader. The head of the government, supported by Libya's Eastern Parliament, Osama Hamad, announced the death toll on Monday, according to a report from Libya's official news agency. Lana reported, Osama Hamad said in press releases that residential areas had disappeared after floodwaters swept them out to sea along with thousands of their residents, and that the situation was dire and unprecedented in Libya. Images shared on social networks showed flooded cars, collapsed houses and water flowing through the streets. Hamad called on medical staff and medical assistants to go to the hard-hit eastern Libyan town of Derna to provide immediate assistance. Phone lines were cut in Derna and photos shared by the Red Crescent showed heavily flooded streets. Hospitals in the eastern town of Bada were evacuated after severe flooding caused by rainfall caused by a strong storm. Videos shared on Facebook by Bada Medical Center showed. This rain is the result of the remnants of a very strong low-pressure system, officially named Storm Daniel by the Southeast European National Meteorological Agency. The storm caused catastrophic flooding in Greece last week before moving toward the Mediterranean and developing into a tropical cyclone known as a cyclone. These systems can create dangerous conditions in the Mediterranean and coastal countries.
Flood-ravaged Derna is the epicenter of the disaster, caused by a powerful storm that burst two dams nearly a week ago. It swept multi-story buildings into the sea with sleeping families inside. But it wasn't just Derna. People were also washed away by torrents in Susa, another coastal town. The aftermath is devastating in the towns of Al-Baida, Al-Marj, and several others in eastern Libya. The floods have killed thousands of people and displaced more than 30,000. The frantic rescue efforts are still on the way, but for those who survived, there is now a risk of another disaster.
As of Sunday, the authorities in Morocco have reported that the number of casualties resulting from the disaster has reached 2,012, with an additional 2,059 individuals sustaining injuries, of which 1,404 are in critical condition. There is concern that the death toll may continue to increase. In the aftermath of the devastating earthquake, fear and chaos gripped Morocco. Witnesses recounted the widespread panic that swept through the North African nation when strong tremors struck.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله شنو ما أدري أخذت واحد.
In response to the loss of thousands of lives, the King of Morocco has declared a 3-day period of national mourning in the country. The royal court, in a statement, has announced that the national flag will be lowered. The death toll is rapidly increasing, raising concerns about the accessibility of remote communities in the Atlas Mountains for rescue operations. Meanwhile, the armed forces are actively deploying rescue teams to deliver essential supplies, including clean drinking water, food provisions, tents, and blankets to the affected areas. Amidst the shock and devastation that rattled residents in villages located many kilometers from the epicenter of Morocco's powerful earthquake, people across the country described experiencing a paralyzing fear of further tremors and a widespread state of confusion. The earthquake struck shortly after 11 p.m. local time on Friday, causing the collapse of stone buildings and portions of a towering minaret in the center of Marrakesh. This event led to widespread panic, not only in the immediate vicinity, but also in distant areas far from the rural town of Igel in Al Haus province, which is situated 44 miles south of Marrakesh. Everyone ran out into the street. People were in shock, crying, holding their babies in their arms. The streets were jammed with people. Everyone was scared to go back to their homes as they just didn't know if it was over or if it could continue, recounted an eyewitness. We stood outside for another hour or two trying to figure out what had happened. Fire trucks and ambulances were rushing past us. It was so chaotic. Then, after 40 minutes, everyone was just sitting on the sidewalk outside and kind of waiting. We didn't know what was going on. Footage from the scene depicted extensive damage throughout Marrakesh, a UNESCO World Heritage Site where new residential developments on the outskirts of the sprawling city contrast with a labyrinth of historic and ornate buildings lining narrow alleyways.
Despite an earthquake disaster affecting 300,000 of his own people, the King of Morocco has refused help from the United States or France. Only Britain, Spain, the UAE and Qatar have been allowed to supply aid, despite a need on the ground that locals say is desperate.
Into the fourth day, there are few miracles still to be found. Hundreds of thousands of villagers have been left to their own resources. In the high mountains of the Atlas Range, Hanifa has found alive her niece, the only survivor of her immediate family.
I will now adopt her. I will be her mother because her whole family has died.
The UN estimates some 300,000 people are homeless.
We asked the king and officials to find solutions for us. We have no place to go.
But the king has refused help from the US and France. Only 4 countries, including Qatar and the UAE, are considered acceptable.